Richard. We're so happy that you could join us. We are going to have some time for Q&A as well for all our panelists. I'll introduce them so you'll know what brands they've worked for, what they've done, so you have an idea of the expertise we have on the call here as well. So as we're just about to get started here, then be thinking about what questions you want to ask. There is some functionality in Zoom to send those questions forward. That would be great. We will also have some polling that we're going to do. Some polling on some general interest things like how long you think the lockdown is going to last, and some more specific things for marketers. So as you see those come through, feel free to take a moment and enjoy those. And just so you know, I've already said it, but it's not going to be a typical webinar. We're not going to have a deck up most of the time. Most of the time you're going to see faces, because this is about people and this is about connecting, and we want to do that. So if you're just joining, we're starting in literally a minute or two right now, and we've been talking about where we're from because it's a very international panel. We have Hermione from London, we have Rebecca in New York, we have Yana from San Francisco, and we have Sunil in Mountain View, also in California, and I am from Vancouver, Canada. So I think that we're probably basically ready to get going. We have 60 people live with us right now, and of course, many others who will be joining shortly. Wonderful. Krista from Toledo, Ohio. Excellent. Glad you could join us. That is wonderful. So I think I'm going to get started right now. Hey, Medellin, Colombia. Wonderful. Excellent. Hope that you are safe. Hope that all your loved ones are safe, Claudia. I think I'm going to get started here, and I'm going to just welcome everybody, including Juan from Honduras. This is the new rules of marketing engagement webinar. It's not a webinar. It's a live chat. We're talking, right? My name is John Kutsier. I write for Forbes. I consult with tech companies. And this is a live chat with and for marketers in crisis, right? The world has changed. Everything has changed. Where you work has changed. If you're working has changed. What your kids are doing, if you have kids, has changed. If they're going to school or not going to school, they're not right now, right? Everything is changing. The products you can, where you buy things is changing. The products that are accessible to you, that's changing. So much is different. But life and work can't just stop, however. We need to find some way of making our way through, finding a way through. It's interesting, just recently, I surveyed 250 CMOs, amazing wisdom. And there's one quote I want to read to you. It's from Jamie Punishel. He's a CMO at Lionbridge. It's kind of a global translation company. And it's about being in the front lines. And he said, for so many people, life has become so unexpectedly hectic and frightening. It's important right now that businesses keep going. Marketers are on the front line of the economy. It takes sales to pay vendors and pay employees. It takes revenue to keep a business running. So marketers aren't medical workers, right? We're not doctors, we're not nurses, we're not healthcare professionals, not first responders. So our lives aren't on the line in the same way that some of those are. But the economy is critical. That's how people put food on the table. That's how rent gets paid. That's how people are able to clothe themselves and do the things that they need to do. And that means that you are critical. I just want to take a second at the start of this live chat to thank you. Thank you for getting up in the morning. To thank you for opening up your laptop and getting to work. To thank you for continuing to do what you do, because you drive the economy. And that's really critical, because we do need to get through this health care crisis. Absolutely. And lives are at stake. Absolutely. But we also have an economy that feeds us, that clothes us, that houses us. And that also needs to happen in safe ways. So I want to thank you for that. So we said we just can't stop, right? And frankly, none of those 250 CMOs that I interviewed, surveyed, said, hey, just stop, give up, roll over and die. We need to find a way through together. That's what we're going to do today. We're going to talk about what's changing. We're going to discuss what to do about it. We're going to get our panelists' top 3 tips for moving forward. We're going to have some Q&A time as well. So if you've got questions, go ahead and ask them. And we've got a few polls that are coming through as well. And by the way, this is just the first session that we have right now. And Tanushree, if you can bring up the slides, that would be amazing. Wonderful. Thank you so much. We actually have 8 live chats over the next 2 months. It's exciting. It's a big deal. It's a big commitment. It's a lot of things we're doing here. And we're going to talk with different experts in different areas, different verticals. So if you'd like to go check that out, that'd be amazing. Open up window, clevertap.com/new rules. Check it out. See what vertical corresponds to what you want to do. And also make sure that you click into the last one where we're going to sum up everything and talk about how to really move forward. So Tanushree, if you can put up the slide for our guests, that would be great. And I just want to introduce them really briefly because we have a stellar cast here. You can see their full names on the screen. I'm going to introduce Hermione. She was at Bravo TV. She was at the Next Web writing and producing things. She was an executive at Tinder, and she is now the Chief Marketing Officer at Sportside. Thank you so much for joining us, Hermione.
Glad to be here.
Wonderful. We also have Sunil. Sunil had leading roles at InfoSpace, Network 18. He's now co-founder and CEO for, I think, the last 8 years, maybe 10 years at CleverTap. Thank you so much, Sunil, for taking some time to join us.
Thank you, John. Pleasure to be here.
Wonderful. We also have Rebecca. Rebecca is an interesting person. She spent some time at IBM. She was a marketing executive at Audible and iHeartMedia. If you've heard of iHeartRadio, for instance, she is now the founder of Notable, which is a marketing consultancy and does amazing work helping marketers maximize growth, retention, other things like that. Thank you so much for joining us, Rebecca.
Thank you.
Wonderful. And we have Yana Jacobs. She joined us at the very last minute. It was wonderful. We had somebody who had to cancel, hopefully not for a health emergency. So we're so thankful to have Yana with us. She was at Salesforce. She spent some time at Intuit, as I believe is how I believe they say it. She's been a longtime consultant, and she's now head of product marketing at Credit Sesame. Thank you for joining us, Yana.
Thank you for having me.
Wonderful. So I do a lot of live casting. I do a lot of podcasting. We can kill the slides now and just have lots of faces, Tanushree. And the thing that I'm starting all my conversations with, and I suspect that many of you who are listening with us right now and listening in the future as well as you tune into this, is you're asking people, how are you doing? Where are you? What's going on? How is life? I'm going to start that as well. I'm going to start that with Rebecca. And I'm just going to say personally, where are you right now? And professionally, what's happening in your world?
I'm reporting live from the epicenter in New York City. Cruelly, I'm only 2 blocks away from my office, but I'm working out of my apartment, and everybody on this call, I'm sure, knows enough about how the size of New York City apartments. So I'm starting all of these calls by also warning my dog is here with me as well. But I'm, that being said, extraordinarily fortunate. The work that I do has always been primarily remote. Our team is, most of us are in the headquarters in New York, although we have some people around the country. But yeah, we've been able to operate, and to echo some of your sentiments at the beginning of the call, most of our clients are actually just as busy, if not busier than ever. So I certainly have some insights to share from that, but feeling very, very fortunate.
Wonderful. Good to hear from you. Hermione, where are you? How are you doing personally and professionally?
I'm good. I'm London, and I'm okay. Obviously, life as I knew it has totally changed in the last few weeks, and it's sort of a funny thing in the UK because the numbers keep going down, and every day they go down. The deaths from coronavirus. I'm like, yes, we'll go back to normal. And then today we had a spike. I think it was over 800 deaths, and then you think, oh no, they're going to keep lockdown for another month. So it's really up and down. It's a really sort of uneven ground. But luckily, as far as my work goes, I have a very understanding CEO, Zan. He's tuning in now. Just like you, our team is remote. We used to have board meetings in London once a month, but obviously we're doing that remotely at the moment. We've had to completely shift our business model for this period because we were about to launch an app that was like Tinder for sports. So an app that connected you and matched you with people and found you a sporting game or encouraged you to participate in sport in your local area. Which obviously in a global lockdown with all global sporting events cancelled, you can't do. But luckily our investor and our CEO have been very, very quick to iterate And as a team, we've completely flipped our business model and we're onboarding home lockdown workout partners. So we're featuring now these amazing partners who are producing content on our channels to try and keep people fit through this period, because the doctors are saying that the number one thing you can do to help you from stop getting sick, really sick from coronavirus, is to keep fit and healthy. And obviously exercise is a key part of that. So if you check out our blog on sportside.com, you can see all the great partners we're going to be onboarding over the next few weeks.
That is wonderful. What a pivot. I mean, there's something to be learned there, and I'm sure we will learn as we go forward as well. Sunil, can you tell us how you're doing personally and professionally?
Yeah, touch wood, on a personal side, like Rebecca said, I'm feeling very fortunate. No one in my family or close friend circuit like I've heard of having coronavirus. So feeling very, very fortunate on that. And just dealing with the same challenges I think everybody is facing, working from home, or having only virtual access. Kids, Rebecca, I have a dog and kids, let me tell you, kids are worse. They have been warned. And shared internet access, bandwidth with everybody at home, and giving myself a haircut, bad tip, bad idea.
It looks good. You did a great job. Wow. Almost as good as me.
I'm getting there, John. Yes, I'll get there.
Oh, awesome. That's
And
wonderful.
professionally, yeah, and professionally, this is certainly a time for turbulence. We are seeing the same short-term challenges that everybody's seeing. I also think that this is a time for thoughtfulness, and we are, CleverTap's doing what most companies are doing this time, reevaluating and adjusting, really.
Yeah. Yeah. Excellent. Yana, last but not least, how are you doing personally and professionally?
Personally, just echo what everybody else is saying, right? It is challenging. We can't sugarcoat it. It's while we're very fortunate to be able to work from home and have a job at this time, because a lot of our customers at least don't. It's challenging, right? Because the same as everybody else, I have a kid and I have a dog, and they're in the house right now, locked away from me and the noisy neighbor, and all these things that you have to deal with on a daily basis now. But very fortunate as well, nobody in my immediate family or friends is sick, which is very, very lucky for us. On the professional side, again, very similar to the other panelists as well, we had to pivot quite a bit. So obviously with our quarterly planning process, we planned out in terms of the marketing team, the product team, engineering, everybody planned out the next quarter, right? Coronavirus comes around. Most of these plans had to, at the very least, to be adapted, if not completely scrapped, and stand up something new. We're definitely pivoting in that regard, but we're not losing sight of our North Star, which at Credit Sesame is to enable people to achieve financial wellness. And now it's even more so of a North Star for us than ever before, because a lot of our customers are having a lot of issues and just trying to manage their finances on a daily basis right now.
Yeah, I can imagine that. Wonderful. Well, thank you everybody for pinging in on just where you are, how you're feeling, and everything like that. I think that everybody who's on the line as well, listening now and watching in the future, has the same feelings of just where am I, what's going on, what's happening. But it's amazing to see that people are pivoting and changing and addressing where they're going. So I'm going to address our first question really about kind of the marketing challenges here to Sunil first. And Sunil, on a broad level, you mentioned that you've been dealing with it. You mentioned changing plans, adjusting circumstances, all that stuff. What's COVID-19 changing for marketers on a macro level right now?
Yeah, John, I mean, I think I honestly feel that the rules of marketing have changed completely. Like it's the reasons is because the competitive landscape has changed, and it's today's largest competitors, I want to say, are psychological rather than direct competitors. Almost, kids at home. We talked about some of these issues, but overall, people are in survival mode. They are not prepared in a way to make decisions as quickly as they might have prior to the pandemic. So I think the old rules of engagement really don't apply anymore. I mean, this is a larger impact than even World War II had, and even World War II, if you think about it, was sort of largely regional in its activities, right? So this is really broad, global. This is affecting everyone in all markets, all verticals. So this is at a macro level, it's really dramatically changed everything there
Yes.
is that we used to think about.
Yes, yes, I agree. Rebecca, maybe you can ping in here a little bit and talk about, from your perspective, what do you see COVID-19 changing for marketers right now?
I see a lot of expediting or accelerating certain things that were already happening. So something that we've been talking a lot about internally is the need to follow the signal that our user data is showing us. So we partner with brands, and our engagements are always part strategic, but they're also grounded in the tools, the technology that the marketing teams are using. And what's interesting for me is that when we're talking about the kind of campaigns that all of us as consumers ourselves are used to receiving, we sometimes insert ourselves into thinking through how we would want to receive those, right? And we break that rule of product development of we think of ourselves as the consumer. And with as many things up in the air as are right now, our instinct has never been sort of less equipped to help us through this. So we're really doubling down on the data that we're looking at. And I hate to sound as opportunistic as I do, but it really is illustrating when we do that, we're getting a very strong signal from our users. And I had mentioned at the beginning of this call that I'm in New York, and that there is this tale of two cities happening here for those of us that are fortunate enough to be able to work from home, and we're somewhat sheltered from what's happening outside. For us, this is a nesting time. This is an opportunity to pick up some projects that we haven't paid attention to. And I've been doing a lot of shopping online and taking my simple pleasures where I can find it. And we're seeing a lot of the same thing in the data from the work that we're doing with our clients. So we get the signal both ways. We get messages about, okay, these are people who are not interacting with the product, or we're also seeing a lot of shifts. And so they're gravitating towards different features. I think what Hermione was saying before is really interesting. The ability to pivot depends on being close to those numbers.
Interesting. And Hermione, do you want to ping in on the same question? What is changing?
Well, I actually think coronavirus is accelerating global trends that were already happening, like remote working, working from home, increasing screen time in terms of entertainment, Netflix, increasing gaming. I mean, my husband got furloughed from his job. The first thing he did, he went and spent £50 on his favorite war game, that his tank game that he likes. So I actually don't think that's a bad thing. I think more people do want to work from home because people want to be around their families more, and it's actually positive for the environment. I mean, and look how clear the skies are. The air in London and New York and in Los Angeles, the air's never been cleaner. So I think actually it could be a good thing for accelerating trends that were already happening. But yeah, I mean, businesses are going to have to pivot, and we don't know how long this is going to last. So it could be a 1 month thing, or it could be a 12-month thing. So we have to be very lean in our approach, and be very fast to react to the news around us.
That's a really, really good point. Yana, did you want to ping in on the same question?
Yeah, absolutely. So a couple of things that Rebecca and both Hermione also mentioned. We are more so than ever now focused on helping our customers, because if they needed us before COVID, they really need us now. We know that in terms of US consumers, at least about 2/3 live paycheck to paycheck, and our own customers, over 80% live paycheck to paycheck. Again, that was before COVID. you can imagine what that situation looks like now and in the coming weeks and months. So there are some people with real problems, day-to-day issues out there. And as a marketer, specifically, we look at a lot of data, just like Rebecca mentioned as well. We have daily surveys that are going out, and qualitative and quantitative, and really looking at what our customers are telling us, because that's the only way that we can help them, if we meet them where they need us, and also adjust our product offerings, adjust the way we talk to them. We went through a big, huge exercise to look at all of our messaging that we have going out in different channels, and making sure that, you know, we don't want to appear tone deaf. I see some brands out there that are still advertising on TV, for example, or emails I'm getting, and I'm like, how can you possibly send this in this situation, right? So we're very, very, very conscious, being very empathetic and really thoughtful about what we're putting out in this current time. So definitely a change, but it doesn't change our big North Star. Again, we are all about financial wellness, and to Hermione's point, we're accelerating that big time.
You made some great points there. I mean, accelerating change is already happening, absolutely, but also taking a leadership role and talking about it. It's interesting. I got pitched by Verizon just yesterday on a branding survey that they did, which is about coronavirus. Should brands talk about it? Should they include it in their communications? And 83% of the 1,000 people that they surveyed said companies should take a leadership role in encouraging people to prevent the spread of the coronavirus. So there is a message to be said there. I'll also ping in and say, I don't know if you saw the results pop up on the survey, but the first one on the poll, most of us said about 3 months is the length of the shutdown still. So another 3 months of doing what we're doing. Hopefully that's not true. It may even be more than that. And there were others who went higher. But this is kind of a good segue talking about messaging. And I'm going to get Hermione to talk about it first. It's also relevant to the question that Frank posted in the chat that everybody can see as well. And the question I want to talk about is talking about consumer behavior and how it's evolving and what that means for marketers. Hermione, can you ping in on that?
Sure. So I actually believe that if moving forward, if your brand or company doesn't have a social, environmental, or climate-based advantage, it will fail, because consumers want organic food. Consumers don't want to use as much plastic in their lives. Consumers want a clean environment. People want to stay fit. You know, they say fitness is the new wealth, and people want to be fit and healthy. And I think we're actually seeing with consumer behavior a move away from consumerism. Actually, I think people are wanting to live more sustainably. I mean, I've got a great group of girlfriends here, and they love, you know, they're young, cool women, and they love knitting their own things and crocheting and you know, doing home workouts. And you know, we brag about how many vegetables we grew in our garden, mine being the lowest, of course. But you know, it's becoming cool to be sustainable. You look at all the Hollywood actors in Hollywood, and they're buying Teslas, they're buying electric cars, they're not buying gas guzzlers anymore. Yes. So I think there is a move away from consumerism. And one of the big campaigns I worked at Tinder was actually a partnership with the National Health Service in England, who had come to us and said, look, 11,000 people died last year because they couldn't get a match for an organ donation. You're an app that reaches the 18 to 35 age group in the millions. Can you help us? So we ran this wonderful campaign where we matched people with this sign up, where they could sign up to donate their organs. And it was hugely successful. You can read about it on the BBC News website. But this is something I'm really passionate about, technology for good. And our founder at Sportside actually started this because he realized that the number one reason why people don't participate in sport is because they haven't got anyone to play with. So he came up with this idea that if you could match people wanting to play sport in your location, and then also with sporting events or local leisure centres and sporting venues, then you can get people to have a much higher engagement in sport. But I think technology for good is going to be a massive theme. And as I said in the beginning, if you don't have a social angle to your business model, I think you'll fail.
Well, that's really interesting. I'm gonna ask Sunil to comment on the same question about changing consumer behavior, because you brought up, look, we've got clean skies in New Delhi, we've got clean skies in New York and Los Angeles and London. We see animals return in different places, and so you talked about consumerism. Well, you know what? When we consume things that are digital, and Sunil, I think that you enable a lot of that because of what you do at CleverTap. That we don't have as big a planetary or ecological impact. Sunil, can you talk a little bit about how you see consumer behavior evolving in response to coronavirus?
Yeah, so in our space, mobile apps, mobile run tech, etc. Right? There's not only like everyone has moved to mobile apps, but the apps that they use have changed. So these are two separate things, right? I mean, apps like House Party, for example, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
installs are up like 700% just in March. Like e-commerce, from what multiple reports talk about, right, is up in 25% to 30% just in Q1. Online groceries up, right? Virus protection, product purchases, things like that are up like dramatically. We all know the Zoom story. So I think there is just a lot of consumer behavior evolving because of the fact that we are all remote or all sort of mobile bound, if you will, and
Yes.
and that is a good thing. But in terms of also your the other question of new rules of brand messaging, right, I would really say that you've got to treat people as individuals, I think, is the biggest thing there. When you're a consumer business, it's easy to think that way because every consumer, you do think at least intuitively as an individual. But really a B2B business is also, I mean, that's a phrase, right? I mean, people are humans first and then professionals later. So if you want to evolve into sort of new rules of brand messaging, etc., you want to drive confidence, you want to drive engagement, I think you must appeal to like people first and then to the professionals second. Almost it's really requires careful foresight. It requires some thought and planning, and sort of changing the tool sets like that, I think. And that'll change dramatically, I think, from what we are seeing in our
Well, it's all
customers also.
it's almost like you planned that, because it's a perfect segue. We just had that poll come up, and I think basically 100% of people said that their messaging is changing. And I don't have the poll up anymore; it disappeared, but it looked like almost half said completely and totally. And Yana, I'm going to ask you to ping in on this because you actually talked about this as well right off top. And there it comes up. Thank you, host. That's wonderful. Yes, 45% totally revamping your messaging. Guess what? I've seen it, some OTT, some streaming providers. I won't name a name right now. I won't out them, but they're showing the same ads that they were pre-coronavirus. All these happy, smiling faces and people just having a wonderful time. Guess what? We have a global shutdown. That's got to impact how your messaging is being created and how it comes across. Yana, can you talk about that a little bit?
Absolutely. So in terms of the messaging, yes, it has definitely changed for us. The underlying rules, though, are not necessarily new, at least in our space, but they apply more than ever. Our first principle and our biggest mindset is customer first. What I mean by that is we continue, even and especially now, what I mentioned earlier with data, with just interviewing customers and just looking at their just behavior in the product, really figuring out what's happening with them, what are their issues, and then really building that bridge between what are their issues they're seeing and what are the problems they're having and how we can meet those problems and give them solutions and provide assistance. Doesn't always have to be a product. It could just be a message like, hey, we're here for you. Ask us a question. Like, for example, we stood up a live Twitter Q&A. It's a weekly thing now where people can just go onto our Twitter and ask any question they want about their financial situation, and we'll help them along. And especially when it's related to credit, obviously we're the experts, and if not, we'll find a way to help them. But I think to really deeply understand is one thing that we continuing to do, and it's more critical now. I think the other thing is we really have to build trust with our customers now and build those long-lasting relationships. Again, we've always done it, but it's more critical now. And it's twofold. One is to support the short term, right? meeting the goals, the short-term goals of our customers. A lot of our customers right now are very focused on the day-to-day, right? They're strapped for money, they lost their job, and they're in a very dire situation in some instances. And so they can't think about, oh, I want to buy a house and I want to build my credit to buy a house in, 6 months or a year's time. They're thinking, how can I put food on the table today? So you cannot be tone deaf. You have to change your messaging, absolutely, and really pivot in this way. But it's not just short term, it also helps building the long term success for your business and your customers. Because if you build those trusting relationships today, these people will come back and stick with you, hopefully, and use your service and help your business in the long run. And we want to do everything in our power to stick it out, to weather the storm right now that everybody's facing, more or less, to be there for our customers once we come out of this health crisis, and then when people are ready to rebuild their finances again. So
Jana, that's a great point. And that's something that came out again and again from the 250 CMOs that I talked to or surveyed. And just right now we're going to build, and we're going to build for the long term. And we're going to invest right now. We're going to continue to invest because we want to be here for a long time. So that's a great point. Rebecca, I'm going to turn to you next on the same topic. And just before you jump in, I'm going to just, Charles Orlando is the Chief Brand Officer for CleverTap. And he's on the last webinar, by the way, and he's amazing. So you got to ping into that one. He actually put kind of a white paper together, kind of cool. I helped with just a few tiny pieces of it. And he said there's 4 consumer needs right now, right? In this whole crisis, and my world has changed, my life has changed, my job has changed, everything is changing, how my family lives. He says, hey, there's 4 consumer needs. Acknowledgement, hey, we're in tough space, right? Connection, we're in this together. Guidance, here's a path, right? And hope, we're gonna make it through. Rebecca, can you ping in on some of those thoughts in terms of brand messaging?
I think as you're mentioning those, what that brings to me is that's the message that we're sending to our clients and to marketers as well, because I think acknowledgement is really important, right? We understand that this is a very daunting task, but just like we're encouraging our end users, our audience, I think that, as Sunil said, it's like a global pandemic, but it impacts individuals on a completely different level. The things that are scary to some people, I don't have to worry about homeschooling children right now. I have a digital business. My experience is entirely different from somebody who's an essential worker and is getting on the subway every day and going in. And so in some ways, to actually sort of do the opposite of what we've been doing, of like, we're all in this together, which I think is, from a marketing perspective, it's a wonderful message to send. And yet it makes the process of reaching out and doing something really intimidating. And I think a lot of brands self-censor, and there's this fear of, I'm going to say the wrong thing. And we've talked about how this is accelerating things. It's always been that case. We've always been encouraging our clients to test things, and we have the tools to do that in a way that we didn't when I was first working in marketing. And so we have this wonderful luxury of, we can sample messages, we can A/B test what language is working, we can start by reaching out to the people who are interacting with us and send a separate message to those who maybe haven't come to us. And I'm seeing some messages coming in from people who work at a variety of brands. So somebody wrote in from travel. Obviously, there's a very different message that you're sending to people if it comes to that versus some of our clients who are in banking or in fast food. But I think that I would say, actually get into the weeds a little bit, and that's where it becomes less daunting. And just to add one more point, because Jay from CleverTap asked a question that speaks very much to a favorite topic of mine, about marketers and product teams who are managing a number of different relationships. I think that there is something obviously very unprecedented about the time that we've been in before, but we have been through much more localized crises. Individual brands have had their own crises. We're fortunate enough at Notable that we worked with a brand that had a viral sensation last year, and so that's a crisis of the good kind. And so I do think that looking to experts they can tell you, they can guide you through some of the things that we know and sort of how to take that first step. Because while we're all being inundated by messages, I also would not want to be the brand who's not participating in that conversation. And especially at the outset of the call, we've now been through phase 1 and phase 2. Let's say phase 1 was like, pause everything, let's make sure we're not sending anything crazy. And phase 2 was a little bit about our stores are going to be closed or our processes are changing. But there's going to be phase 3, phase 4 as things are changing, as certain countries are coming back online. So don't miss phase 3, phase 4, whatever's coming, for fear that you don't know where to start.
Rebecca, that's wonderful. Really appreciate that. And we're going to turn to Sunil next, but I'll just mention off the top in the middle here that we have some questions coming in and piling up in the Q&A area as well as in the chat area. Don't worry, we're going to get to that actually pretty quickly as well. And I noticed one question about the fintech sector, little plug, clevertap.com/new rules. There is a fintech specific session that we're going to do. So there'll be something there for you, I'm sure, as well, but we'll try to answer your question here today also. Excellent. So Sunil, I'm going to give you the hard job here. This is a really challenging job because we said off the top, hey, we're in crisis. This is unprecedented. It's really, really challenging personally, professionally, all those different ways. We also said we need to find a way through, right? We're not going to just roll over. We're not just going to die here and give up, right? We're going to fight through this thing. And we're going to fight through this thing on the health side. Absolutely. We're also going to try to fight through this thing on the economy side. And individually for our different companies, that means different things. But I'm going to ask you this. I know you've been working on it for your company. How will we find a way through? And maybe related to that, what's your top priority right after we get off this call, Sunil?
That is a tough question. So
yeah, I gave you the hard one. I told you that.
Yes. So I don't know, John, if my top priority changes after this call, because this has been the top priority for like at least a couple of weeks now. But I think the sort of the foundation that I am keeping using to keep ourselves honest is to communicate. I mean, there has to be a lot of communication with customers, which is, I'm in the middle of that. There has to be communication with employees, they make up the company. There has to be a lot of that. And like, Rebecca mentioned it, I think this is about details, and this is about getting into the depths of what's required. And the only way you can do it is by communicating. So, my priority continues to be like talking to people, communicating with people, trying to get to the nuances of what is, how we can help really in the limited ways we can. We are comparatively, we're not a global 500 kind of a company as it is. So that, I think that's the pillar of priority really for me. And overall, as a team, we are very much reviewing our go-to-market plan. I mean, honestly, most companies, at least, we do it this way. Most of our 2020 plan was laid out in Q4 of 2019, right? And that's just not, it's not anymore. So it's, it is a big change, and irrespective of what you come out of it, at least one thing is constant, that it has to change. So it's not easy times, but we will find a way through. I mean, it is a question of having one or two pillars to hold on to and carve your way forward, I think.
I love that. That was actually another major theme of the 250 CMOs that I surveyed, which is not only to find a way through, but the communication piece. Communicate with your clients, communicate with your customers, communicate with your users, let them know what you're doing, let them know what's going on, let them know that you've got them, you got their back, and that you're working with them. It's a lot harder to cancel out on a contract, or it's a lot harder to just stop using a service that you're using or an app if you know that the people who are behind it are personally interested in your well-being and welfare. Hermione, I'd love to turn to you next on the same question. And I love what you've done at Sportside. You've totally pivoted to something that's absolutely needed, and you'll probably pivot right back, or maybe you continue that as a sideline as well after this. But if you can generalize a little bit, how will we find a way through, and what's your top priority after this call?
I think out of great despair comes great innovation. So if you
Wow.
look at all the crises in history, it's always when things are thrown into despair and the way of doing things is completely turned on its head, where you find more new models of living, and new models of doing things. So yeah, I think we're going to see huge changes in the way education is done, in the way politics are done. I mean, for example, the British government has just launched a startup grant scheme where they're offering up to $50,000, about £40,000, to anybody who is building a startup that is solving a solution that coronavirus is causing. So they're literally funding new startups to beat this invisible enemy. So I think that's really interesting and really innovative model. My priority after this call is just signing up these partners. We're launching the first one on Thursday. But you know, there are a lot of amazing content creators who are doing home workouts. There's this guy called Joe Wicks in the UK that does this one for kids every morning. So we're getting people like him on board, and we want to be the best place on the web for you to come and work out from lockdown.
Wonderful, wonderful. Can you repeat that line? That's a tweetable line. After great despair comes, what was that?
Great innovation.
Wonderful, wonderful. I love that. That's a headliner. You know, we're going to be sharing a lot of details that comes out of this, right? We're going to do a slide share from this, a deck of the top quotes and everything. So everybody else on the panel, I mean, like, up your game. You know, you got to have something that's quotable. And we're going to tweet that out. We're going to share that. We're going to do some highlight reel stuff. So that is really awesome. So we're going to move forward then to a rapid fire portion of what we're talking about here. And I asked each panelist to prepare top 3 tips for marketers. And guess what? You know, some people who get in maybe last, you might be a little unlucky because somebody may have stolen your thunder and taken your tip. So I apologize if that happens. But Hermione, we are going back to you. Rapid fire. What are your top 3 tips for marketers right now?
Embrace it. Send out love because people are suffering and people are your customers. And think of new ways to do things.
Be honest. You just figured out those right in the moment. You didn't prepare at all.
I didn't hear about the preparation bit, but yeah.
It's all good. Those are really good. Thank you so much. We're going to Sunil next. Your top 3 tips for marketers right now.
I think communicate clearly, communicate a lot. I think look at your, you know, this is a cost problem. So I do think we should evaluate our total cost of ownership, whether it's for tech, whether it's for the other efforts that we do. So evaluate your cost of ownership. And I think, you know, help the worldwide effort. Number 3, stay home. Stay locked
Wonderful.
up.
Communicate, cost, and stay home. Wonderful. Love it. Awesome. Rebecca, you are up.
Okay. So, I'm going to do 2 since some of mine have been taken. One is showcase your humanity. I work in a sector where we spend so much time talking about the technology, and the part that I think is always missing is, John, you mentioned it before, never miss an opportunity to remind people that there are people behind these brands. I talk a lot about when people send out mistake campaign, like they send out a campaign by accident and then they send the oops, we messed up. And those are some of the best performing campaigns. Mm-hmm. So whenever you just remind somebody that there's a human being there. And then the other thing is, since we are all working from home, use this as an opportunity to really get your internal infrastructure where it should be, to document things, all of that stuff that you're having to do to make communication possible since everybody's working remotely. This is a great opportunity, and have that be part of the fabric of your organization forever.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Really appreciate that. And we're going to turn to Yana for her 3 in a second, but I just happened to notice, by the way, because I'm looking at the questions because we're going to Q&A next. Krista said, will this recording be available when complete? Working with an infinite home, so I've missed a few moments. Guess what? We've been there. Some of us have pets. Some of us have kids. Absolutely. Yes, it most definitely will. And we will be sending you some details of what was said in the key thoughts and ideas here as well, Krista. So no worries. Yana, what are your top 3 tips for marketers right now?
My first one kind of came through in some of the things I mentioned earlier, like really listen to your audience, listen to your customer, and focus on building trust, and maybe you have to look at your business model as well and pivot from being focused on growth, user acquisition and growth, and focus more on retention, focus more on engagement, and really build that trust. I think that's number one. I think what's really important also is have a really flexible team in place that can tackle these things and pivot really quickly and adapt to this changing environment, the changing news cycle. I mean, there's so much stuff happening every day. It's kind of hard to keep up, but be really nimble, but focus on the customer needs. And I think the third one is don't lose sight in the short term of your long-term goals as well as a company, but also for your customers, right? Because to Rebecca's point earlier, this is phase 1 and 2. There will be a phase 3 and 4, and you gotta, while you're doing phase 1 and 2 and addressing those needs, you have to think about what's in phase 3 and 4, what's coming down the pipe in a few weeks, months time, and really also set yourself up for success for the longer term as well.
Yana, that was amazing. That was really good. I know you joined this last minute. I think we signed you up yesterday for this, and you've still given great insight. I really appreciate that. I'm going to underline one of those, and that's being agile and being able to pivot. I work with a number of different brands aside from my writing for Forbes. And the one constant is similar to what everybody reported on the poll here. Everybody's changing all their messaging, changing their strategy, adapting at best, but sometimes throwing out the window or at least delaying for a quarter or two. And so there's a ton of work all over the place to do everything, to to create stuff, and you have to do it on the fly. And that requires a certain mindset. It also requires a certain organizational agility. So really, really, really critical. Excellent. So we are going to turn to the Q&A portion of this live chat right now. And I'm going to ask a question. I'm going to throw it out. If I have an idea of who might be great to answer, I might mention it. But otherwise, panelists, finders keepers, first one to grab it gets it. Here's the first one. And this one is from Sarah Brown. How does marketing strategy pivot from a budget point of view? Have you seen changes in your PPC, pay-per-click budgets? Are marketers moving more towards organic growth hacks? Sarah says, sorry for the long question, but as a marketer, I'm really interested. Well, guess what? We are too. Excellent. Who would like to take that first?
I can definitely speak to that as well. So my very close team I'm working with is our user acquisition team, right? And obviously, like I mentioned earlier, we've been hyper-focused on growth up until, the end of Q1. Now we have to pivot in Q2, but definitely we're looking at lots of different ways to move a little bit or kind of slow things down on the growth side and really focus on engagement and retention and really putting a lot of effort into SEO, into just organic marketing, and almost turning a team of user acquisition marketers and affiliate marketers into in some cases content writers, and they're starting writing blog articles for us and really becoming those thought leaders. So we're definitely trying to tap into lots of different skill sets here, and who knows what we're finding in some of these individuals. There might be a writer and they didn't even know it, but we're definitely shifting in terms of our budget, but also in terms of our skill set.
Wonderful. Rebecca, are you seeing some similar things?
Yeah, I think that I love that idea actually. And I think it goes back to what Hermione said before. That's where growth hacking comes from, is like necessity, creating these things. And when all of a sudden you have somebody who's a user acquisition marketer doing the work of content, and all of a sudden they understand a little bit more and vice versa, then it changes the way that they're doing acquisition moving forward. So it's always been like in our organization where we try very hard to be cross-functional. You can talk about having processes in place to do that kind of knowledge transfer, and it's never going to happen. And it's only in a moment like this that it is. The one other thing that I was going to say from the PPC perspective, but Yana, you're probably much better versed in this than I am. I am hearing of some opportunities in UA spends, and I'm even seeing a lot of things in terms of the pricing for the SaaS platforms that I work with, where things are being discounted. A lot of people are pausing their spend, so I feel like a little uncomfortable talking about these things, about the opportunistic side of coronavirus, but it is the reality. This might be a wonderful opportunity to get to test some budgets and see some some efficiencies that you wouldn't see otherwise. So, not to be that marketer that says test everything, but why wouldn't you give that a shot?
So what you're saying, Rebecca, basically is that your quote, your headliner for this session when we shared is necessity is the mother of invention. You're claiming that quote and that's original to you and excellent. No, that's good advice.
The quotable from Notable.
There you go. Wow. A little bit of branding in there too. Marketing 24/7, never stop selling. Love it. Awesome. We're going to go to a different question here as well. This question is either from Kelly Daigle or from Jay Adams, because there are two names associated here, but it's actually relevant to something that I've been wondering about and talking about in some other areas. And it's about consolidation of your marketing stack and your tech stack. And it says many marketing product teams find themselves managing dozens of discrete products and vendors for various aspects of customer engagement. Are marketing teams now standardizing or reevaluating total cost of ownership? Sunil, why don't we throw that one your way?
So we are certainly seeing this, John. I mean, a lot of our customer communications, like even the ones that I've been involved, have brought this up. And there's an email vendor that's different from a text message vendor, different from a push notification vendor, and it's just like it is not because it was originally designed this way, but it was just because as channels get popular, people have moved on to using them, right? So this is certainly coming across in a lot of our conversations. So
excellent. Anybody else seen something similar? Hermione, you seen anything like that?
Not really. No, I would say, I mean, in terms of our budgets, we're really holding back until, we get to do that big launch on our original model. But we are looking to put some more ad spend into influencer marketing.
Okay, interesting. But in terms of your tech stack, are you looking to make that pretty streamlined?
Yeah. Well, the tech stack has been in development for a while now, and we're just waiting to get the finalized version. But obviously now we're having to add a few more features into this new model. So yeah, very agile in the tech stack.
Excellent. Well, wonderful. I don't see any other questions coming in. So what I think I'll do is I will just ask each of our panelists here in kind of reverse order of who talked most recently to kind of end off with their last few thoughts. Maybe something motivational, maybe something that you're thinking of that's kind of holding you together as you move forward in this point. And so we'll start with Yana on that, and then we will wrap.
Absolutely. So I think in all the meetings we are having remotely now, I think while we're very, very focused on our business and our customers and doing good by all of them, including employees, I think what always bubbles to the top is it's family first. And that what keeps everybody going. There is a big, our leadership reacted really quickly to the environment, I think, and allowed us from like mid-March to work remotely, and we're all doing it. And it's working really well, obviously with some challenges, but it's working well. But I think the message that is very pervasive across the organizations, starting with the leadership and all the way down, is focus on your health, focus on your family. These are the two things that are most important. Yes, we have a business to run, and yes, we have consumers that depend on us, but at the end of the day, this is what really matters.
Wonderful. Rebecca, your last few thoughts.
Here in New York, I go out every night at 7 o'clock for the applause that are happening. And there's somebody on my block who's been putting up a speaker. There's a different song that's played every night at 7. Other than the fact that I have a dog, and so I meet people that way on the street, everybody knows that in New York, it's very rare that you even meet your neighbors. And so coming off of what in the US has been years of the most divided that we've ever been, I think there's a really nice silver lining of the expression, we're all in this together. So wow. I've seen some, all of us have seen some of the best in other people. And I think it's, I hope that there's a lasting impact.
Wonderful. And you've got your second quotable quote. Awesome. Two for Wow. Hermione, we'll go with you and we'll end with Sunil.
I feel very lucky to work at a company where our founder and our investor are very understanding of the situation. My kids constantly come in our C-level meetings and our weekly Zoom calls, and instead of feeling bad about it, they comment. They say, "Oh, bring your kid in," and it really puts me at ease as a mom, because obviously, like, oh no, this is supposed to be a professional environment, my kid's coming in, and it could be really awkward. But luckily Zan and Bob are really understanding. We have another wonderful lady, Marisa, she works at our company, she has kids as well, so they've really created a lovely environment that could be very otherwise awkward and could be very scary. They've created a lovely environment to work from during this crisis.
That's wonderful. It reminds me, wasn't it the BBC, and the business person was being interviewed and he was sitting at his desk, and his child came into the home office and he was like trying to push the child away. And
Yeah,
hey, this is our reality right now. Just grab the child, hug him or her.
But you know what? We are all human, and humans have fallacies. We're not perfect. And I think, if anything, this is celebrating our imperfections. And one of the things I love about Richard Branson is he doesn't separate work and family. One day he blogs about his family, the next day he's blogging about work. And I think we are moving towards more of a state where the separation between work and family is blurring, and it's just all one.
Wonderful, wonderful. And Sunil, your last thoughts. What's keeping you going right now?
John, I'll just leave you with a couple of hashtags. A lot of the humanity is coming out and everybody mentioned it, but hashtag stay home, hashtag apart together.
Wonderful.
I think is what we need to do now.
Apart together, that really that resonates, because we started with the term social distancing, and lately I'm more hearing physical distancing. We don't need social distancing. We need more social closeness. We need some physical distancing right now, but that's wonderful. Well, I'm going to wrap then, and I'm going to thank everybody who was on the panel, but I'm going to thank everybody who is a participant as well. It was wonderful. It was a social time. Thank you for pinging in on where you are, where you're living, and asking questions via the chat. I really do appreciate that. I appreciate who you are. I appreciate what you do. I thank you for getting up in the morning, putting your boots on, and getting to work. That is really wonderful. And I want to give a shout out to each of the panelists here who took time out from their day and sometimes their night to be part of this. Hermione, really appreciate you. Thank you for joining. Thank you for sharing your wisdom. Yana, jumping in like a trooper at the last minute. You're amazing. You had great insight. Thank you so much. Sunil, thank you for coming in and giving us your insight as well. That was wonderful and excellent. And Rebecca, I do not see you. I wonder if the dog ate your internet. But we appreciate your insight also.
And John, can I just say one last thing?
Yes.
Before your one last thing, which is you have an incredibly calming voice. You are the type of guy that's needed in a crisis. Like, I just want to record you and put you on loop in my living room.
I have a future in ASMR. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. There are more coming up. We're going to be doing this every week for the next 2 months. CleverTap.com/new rules. Check it out. Find your vertical, ping in, and we'd love to have you again and to talk more about specific things and specific verticals. Stay safe. Have a wonderful day or evening or wherever you are. And thank you for joining.
Thanks, John. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye,
you,
everybody.
Thank you. Bye, John. Thanks.
Thank you, everybody.